All right, when you hear the word economics, you probably picture a bunch of confusing graphs and charts, right? Well, forget all that. Today, we're going to dive into the story of economics. And it's a story about these huge, revolutionary ideas that have literally shaped who we are, what we value, and how we've built our entire world. You know, this whole thing really boils down to one single, massive question that thinkers have been wrestling with for centuries. And that question is, what is the economy even for? I mean, what's the point? Is it to create a good, moral society? Is it all about building national power? Or is it maybe just about individual freedom? As we're about to see, the answer to that question has changed a lot. Okay, so let's rewind. Way back to the beginning. For the very first thinkers, the answer to our big question was super clear. They saw the economy as a tool for morality. Its entire purpose was to create a society that was just and ethical.
Take the ancient Greeks, for instance. Their word for economics, oikonomia, literally just means household management. So for a philosopher like Aristotle, you simply couldn't separate economics from ethics or politics. It was all tangled up together, all about one thing: how do you run a community in a fair and virtuous way?
And Aristotle drew a really sharp line in the sand here. On one side, you had oikonomia, which was the good stuff, managing resources to meet actual human needs. But he warned against something called crematistics, the endless pursuit of wealth just for the sake of it, which he thought was unnatural and would just corrupt people.
Now, this moral view of economics, it definitely didn't stop with the Greeks. Nope, it echoed for centuries. You had medieval Christian thinkers like Thomas Aquinas arguing for a just price for goods, and Islamic scholars like Ibn Khaldun saying that wealth should be used for the good of society, not just for personal greed. The core belief was exactly the same. Economics and ethics are basically inseparable.
But then, things started to shift. The world changed in a big way. And guess what? The answer to our question changed right along with it. The economy's purpose wasn't really about morality anymore. Now, it was all about power, the power of the nation-state.
And this brings us to the age of mercantilism. You've got these powerful new nation-states rising up in Europe, and they're all locked in this fierce competition for global dominance. It was a race fueled by colonial expansion, and their number one weapon in this fight was the economy.
So under mercantilism, a country's wealth wasn't measured by the well-being of its people. Not at all. It was measured by its stash of gold and silver. The strategy was brutally simple. Export as much as you can, import as little as you can. Trade was a total zero-sum game. For you to win, your neighbor had to lose. The individual's interests were completely secondary to the power of the state.
But that whole power-focused view, it was about to get completely turned on its head. A massive intellectual revolution was coming, and it shifted the focus away from the all-powerful state and onto the single, striving individual. This was the dawn of a truly radical idea, the free market.
And nobody captured this new philosophy better than Adam Smith with his famous observation. He argued that the most prosperous societies aren't built on charity or some grand government plan. Nope, he said they emerge naturally, when millions of individuals are just free to pursue their own self-interest.
So here's how Smith's logic worked. When people just pursue their own interests, they naturally specialize in what they're good at. This division of labor makes everyone way more productive, and the result, an invisible hand somehow guides all this selfish activity and, almost like magic, creates more wealth for everybody in society.
This set of ideas became what we now call classical economics. It was built on this really powerful vision of rational people, markets that could perfectly regulate themselves, and a government that, well, mostly just stayed out of the way.
But what happens when that elegant, self-regulating system breaks down? Because crises and recessions gave rise to some powerful new critiques that question the very foundation of classical thought.
So yeah, this belief in a perfectly harmonious market was about to face two huge challenges, coming from completely different directions, that would totally reshape economics for the next 100 years. On one side was Karl Marx, who came at it with a moral critique. He argued the whole system was fundamentally unjust, built on exploiting workers. Then, from another angle, you had John Maynard Keynes with a practical critique. He basically said, look, forget morality for a second. When a real crisis hits, this self-healing market model of yours, it just doesn't work.
And the crisis that really proved Keynes's point was, of course, the Great Depression of the 1930s. The massive unemployment and total economic collapse showed the world that markets could fail spectacularly and stay broken for a very, very long time.
Keynes's solution was revolutionary for its time.
He said government has a duty to intervene. It should actively use spending and monetary policy to manage demand, to fight unemployment, and to stabilize the economy. And with that, the era of hands-off government was pretty much over.
Which brings us right up to today. See, our modern approach isn't based on one single idea. It's more like we have a whole toolkit, and it's filled with a mix of all these powerful and often competing ideas from history.
Today's debates are a fascinating blend of all these past ideas. We see a revival of Adam Smith's free market principles in neoliberalism. At the same time, we have behavioral economics, which challenges the whole idea of a rational human by showing we're often predictably irrational. And then there are entirely new fields, like ecological economics, asking if any of our models are sustainable on a planet with finite resources. There's just no single, simple answer anymore.
And, if you map out our entire journey, a really clear pattern emerges. Notice how our view of human nature keeps evolving, from a social, moral being to a purely rational actor, and finally to the complex, sometimes irrational person we study today. And every single time our view of ourselves changes, the proposed role of government shifts right along with it.
So, after this incredible journey through centuries of ideas, where does that leave us? And maybe more importantly, what's next?
We've watched the core purpose of the economy shift again and again, from morality to power to freedom and then to stability. Every new era presented a new challenge, and our economic ideas evolved to try and meet it.
Today, we face our own immense challenges: the rise of AI, the reality of climate change, and deep-seated global inequality. This forces us to ask that fundamental question all over again. What must the economy be for now, in our time? What do you think the next chapter in this incredible story is going to be?